Hello, and welcome to the first of maybe more audio only Duck Pond Diaries with Misty Lynn. Sounds like a fun show, doesn't it? But it's not. If you're new here, go back to number 1, because the people who aren't new can tell you that Misty talks about what she wants to talk about when she wants to talk about it, because I'm an adult and it's my life and it's my family and I can do what I want to do. Anyway, I'm already liking this already. So I'm recording this on Thursday, October 16th, 2025. So a couple days ago, October 14th, 2025 was exactly 51 years since my mother, Deborah Ann Wilhite, was seen when she was just a wee 19-year-old woman, almost 20. She would have been turning 20 the next month. So originally, before I really dug into stuff about my mom's case, the stuff online, a lot of it said that she was last seen on October 17th. And then there was some stuff that said the 16th, and there were some things that said the 14th. And for a bit, it seemed like the police didn't even really know what the actual date was. And then someone later told me, and then it was kind of fixed, on the Indiana State Police, their official website for their missing people, it says October 14th now. But then it actually says the 16th as well. It has 1014 at the top of the page, and if you Google Deborah Ann Wilhite ISP, Indiana State Police, the top of the page says 10/14/74, but I think down in the details it actually says October 16th, 74. She wasn't actually reported missing until the 16th. She was last seen October 14th. But for a long time, I thought that the date was October 17th. So there's some old stuff, and even flyers that I made, says October 17th. So, like I said, today is the 16th. So tomorrow is October 17th, which is another day for my family. So Deborah's mother, Lucille, who was my grandmother, but she raised me from the time I was, a year and a half old. So she's the only person that I've ever called mom, and in my heart she is mom. She passed away on October 17th, 2019. I remember when the date hit me, and I was like, wow, I lost both my mothers in the same week. And for a second I thought the same day, but like I said, it wasn't the same day. Anyway, this week is a crap week for me. I ended up needing to take off work on the 14th. I couldn't sit, period. I couldn't sit, and I work remotely from home, but it is a desk job, and I had work that needed to be done, but I could not sit. And I'm fortunate and very thankful of her, that my boss is very understanding, and I took some PTO that I have, and I took the day off, and I was just busy, cleaning the kitchen, taking recycle out, doing this, doing that. My mind could not be still. but there was nothing for it to do, nowhere for it to go. I don't know how that makes sense, but in my brain it makes sense. And so moving my body is helpful. What's the saying, like idle hands, idle hands, idle hands. I had to move my body to get my brain to settle. So that's something to keep in mind if you all have the same kind of issue where like you've got something in your brain and it's just, you're gonna freaking lose it. Move your body, take a walk, do a craft, clean your kitchen, reorganize your sock drawer. I do all that. It doesn't matter what it is that you're doing. It's just, I don't know, it like redirects something in your mind. It redirects. Period. It just redirects. So, the Duck Pond Diaries, it's mostly about my biological mother, Deborah Ann Wilhite, for obvious reasons. But today I want to talk about my mom, Deborah's mom. So kind of it's Lucille's our mom, which I never thought of before, but that's kind of, really that's realistic. It was, Lucille was Deborah's mother. Lucille was my mother. Lucille was our mother. That's something that my mother and I have in common. That literally, I am 52 years old, y'all. That literally just hit me right now, driving home from Lake Mary to Orlando. Lucille was our mother. I had that in common with my mother. That's an interesting take. And it's weird that I've never, anyway, so that's weird. and freaking awesome at the same time. I have something in common with my mother. So, Lucille Fetcher was her name, and Fetcher does not start with an F. It starts with a PF because German is all that I have for you. Lucille Lydia Fetcher. She was born in 1928, in January 1928, which is the same year that sliced bread was invented. Because we did a big 90th birthday party for her when she turned 90, and they made, I say they because I had to fly in from Florida, so my aunts and their kids and other people got everything ready, but they made this big board that said 1928, and they put all of just cute little facts and things about what happened the years that she was born. So her maiden name was Dreggy, which is another German name, and that is, I'm not saying druggy, I'm saying Dreggy, and there's still a lot of Dreggies in that area where I'm from, which is southern Indiana, the Evansville area. Droege, Dreggy. And her parents were Valeda and Fred. I loved my grandma, Valeda. When I was in the 3rd grade, we moved out into the country across the street from Lucille's parents, Valeda and Fred. And so I would walk across the street and see my grandma. Of course, they were my great-grandparents, but everything was once removed. I called Lucille mom. I called her parents my grandparents, even though they were my great-grandparents. So, when I'm having a hard time dealing with something that's happening, It doesn't matter what it is, you know. Anything that is going wrong in life, or that I'm, you know, annoyed about or upset with, sorry, somebody just lost something in the middle of the road. Anytime I'm struggling with something, it doesn't matter what it is, I think about my mom, Lucille. Because when I think about, you know, and maybe this will help you too, to get through something, to think about somebody else who has went through more. And I'm not saying that I shouldn't say it like that, because there's plenty of people that have had a lot more that they've dealt with and they're still here kicking. But you know what I'm saying. Like, she lost her daughter. She lost her daughter, her 19-year-old daughter, her firstborn. Just all of a sudden, poof, she was just gone. She was just gone. And no one knew what happened. So, after Deborah disappeared, my father, Jeff, moved into Lucille's house with myself, which again, I was 18 months old, and my older sister, Amy, who was about 3 at the time. Moved in with Lucille, and Deborah had 2 quite a bit younger sisters. So we all lived in the house together, and everybody loved my dad. My mom thought of him as a son, and she could never say enough good about him. She loved him like he was her own blood. So first, Lucille, mom, lost her own daughter. After Deborah disappeared, but before my father, Jeff, was killed, which Deborah disappeared in 1974, my dad was killed in 1976. Before my dad was killed, so sometime between October 1974 and September 1976, my sister Amy was diagnosed with leukemia. When my father was killed in 1976, when his body was identified, and my mom told me this, he was actually wearing a St. Jude Children's Research Hospital t-shirt. He was wearing one of those shirts, and I think they still make them, that look like this, where on the front it says happiness is, like ... and the back says helping St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, or helping St. Jude's. So he was actually wearing a helping St. Jude t-shirt when he was killed. So first, she lost her daughter, never found out, died not knowing. In my mind, she knows now what happened. She knows everything. But she died not knowing, lived her whole life, all of 91 years, not that whole 91 years, but you know what I'm saying. Not knowing what happened to her daughter. And I know that there are a lot of people that can relate to that, having missing people. I know a lot of people that have their own missing people. But she lost her daughter, 2 years later, maybe? 2 years later, then Jeff, my dad, is killed in this horrible accident where his car is hit by a train. Someone else is killed in the car with him. Nobody knew at the time why he had this kid with him, but I learned later that he was giving him a ride home. But killed in this horrible accident. And then she's going back and forth taking Amy to St. Jude's in Memphis. Relapse and remission, death. She died at St. Jude's in 1979. And that's probably the worst of all 3 of those things, is losing your granddaughter that you were raising as your own. It's, I don't know how she made it. I don't know how she did it. I don't know how she got up in the morning. But then here I was. She still had to take care of me. Little Misty. I miss my mom. I loved my mom. And I was lucky, I got the best out of her. She raised her other daughters, and they both got married pretty young. My aunts, Deborah's younger sisters, got married and were out of the house when I was in the 4th grade and then the 5th grade. So by the 5th grade, it was just me and mom at home. I got the best of mom. And I know that. And I am grateful that I had that time with her. I have a lot of good memories. I'm trying not to cry because I want to talk about her. And I want you to know how great she was. Everybody has something. She either loved you or she hated you. If she didn't like you, ooh, she'll tell you. She would tell you. But she was a good person. She did a lot of good. She helped a lot of people. When I was like an older, later on of the higher years of elementary school, that's what I'm trying to say, and like middle school, she she struggled she raised me basically she got my father's Social Security check, which is a lot of what she raised me on. And then she made handmade quilts. Handmade, hand-stitched. She made quilts to make money. And then at that time, she was sitting with the elderly. Just kind of as she wasn't like a nurse or anything like that, but it was basically like babysitting, except for the elderly. Elderly sitting. The parents of people that they weren't bad off enough that they couldn't be home by themselves, but they just needed, a little bit extra. They weren't bad enough. I said that wrong. They weren't bad off enough that they needed to be in a nursing home or an assisted living place, but they needed assistance. They just needed somebody there. So she would stay with the elderly, and a lot of times I would go with her. Which, when I think back, I was so bored sometimes. Because a lot of times I couldn't even watch TV because the older person that she was staying with, they didn't want the TV on, or whatever reason. But I also look back on those times because a lot of times they would tell you stories, or I would just listen to them talk about things, and there was one time that there was one summer, I think it was the summer in between 4th and 5th grade. And she stayed with there was this lady that her daughter, so the lady was in the nursing home. It was actually Pine Haven Nursing Home, which is still there, I'm pretty sure, in Evansville. And this lady had her mother in the nursing home, but she didn't want her mother to just sit there alone all day by herself. She wanted somebody to just literally sit there with her. And, oh man, the sun is about killing me. One moment, I need sunglasses. Where's the sunglasses? Please hold, I need the sunglasses. Okay, I'm getting that sun sunset sun in your eyes. It's 6:35 p.m. and I'm getting that sun. Okay, what was I talking about? Okay, Pine Haven. So she was sitting with this lady who was in Pine Haven, and the lady was pretty much blind, but she liked to do like cross stitch, and she still wanted to do cross stitch, but she was blind, so she couldn't see. So mom literally would just like put the needle in, and then put it up to where it was coming back out from the bottom, and then she would pull it up, and then they would just keep doing that. So she literally just would feel the needle and pull it up, and they just kind of, that's what they did pretty much all day. And again, it's the summertime. I'm going into the 5th grade, just getting out of the 4th grade, I'm pretty sure. And I hung out in the nursing home all day. Mom would like bring our lunch, and I hung out in the nursing home, which is weird that no one said anything about why is this kid just wandering around, because I made friends. I made friends with the old people, and I've always been kind of had a soft spot in my heart for, senior citizens and the elderly. And I don't think it's all just because I was raised by my grandmother, because, when I was growing up, I didn't see her as being old, like that. But I really got to know some of these people, and I would go and visit them every day. I got to know their names. Some of them remembered my name, some of them didn't. But there were some that I literally considered them my friends. So I have fond memories about that. It seems kind of weird when I think about it now that I liked hanging out in a nursing home, but I would probably like that now. I would make friends. But I would literally just go up and down the hall and just like make my stops at my friends that I like to talk to, and they would tell me stories, and they would show me pictures and tell me stories about that time in their life. And my mom would do that sometimes. I remember I was sitting at breakfast, and this was probably, I think this was when I was in the 8th grade. And we're sitting at breakfast. She always made me breakfast before school. And we're sitting eating breakfast, and I was in Mrs. Rising's 8th grade English class. I think that was 8th grade at Mrs. Rising, which was one of my favorite classes and where I discovered my love for writing. Anyway, but we had to do, I hope I'm getting this right and not confused with another class, but I had to do a speech. I had to get up and do a speech in front of the class. I think it was that class. And I didn't want to do that. I didn't like it, and I did not do a good job. And I'm thinking I might have plagiarized something. I don't remember, and I apologize, Mr. Axel. I might be wrong. I'm sure I'm wrong. Surely I didn't do that. Anyway, I feel like I used the word apparatus. What 8th grader uses the word apparatus? We had this like old dictionary set that people, all the people from like the 60s or whatever had or not dictionary, encyclopedias. I'm pretty sure I got something out of the encyclopedia, because I still remember that I used the word apparatus. Anyway, we were talking about speeches and how I didn't like it. I did it though. And my mom was talking about how she didn't like speeches too. And when she was in school, she had this class where like every Friday they had to get up and do a speech. And I was like, oh, what did you do speeches about? And she was like, oh, I skipped every Friday. I didn't go. I never did it. Which was funny, I thought. Oh, we laughed a lot. We laughed a lot. We got tickled about stuff and would just laugh. I'm trying to think of some stories. She was just, she, I'm sure she gave up so much of her life raising me, and that's something that she never complained about. She never complained about it, and she always considered me, one of hers. I was hers. She didn't adopt me, like she didn't adopt me and Amy. She just got legal guardianship over us because she didn't, want to like change our names or anything, and she wanted to make sure that we were together. My maiden name, of course, was Wilhite, so I grew up Misty Wilhite. Misty Lynn Wilhite. Little Misty. Little Misty. So there was, I think, the year before that Mom passed away. Again, she passed away October 17th, 2019. I think it was the year before that. She was in the hospital for something, and they weren't gonna, she needed someone to stay with her when she got out of the hospital. And I, at that time, was working remotely from for a different job. And so I flew from Florida here and flew up there, and I stayed with her for 2 weeks. And I'm so glad that I got that time with her, because again, it was just me and her. And I remember she came in the room and woke me up one morning, and she was like, I think it was the last morning I was going to be leaving that day, and I let myself sleep in a little bit because I didn't get a lot of sleep staying there with her, because she had the TV on, super duper loud, like all night pretty much, and I had to leave the door open because I needed to be able to hear if she needed something. So I didn't sleep much, and I drove. Actually, I drove that time. I didn't fly. I drove. So I had to drive. And I was so tired. So I let myself sleep in a little bit, and she finally came in there, and she goes, "Are you okay?" I said, "Yeah, I'm just trying to get a little more sleep since I got to do all the driving." And she said something like, "It's been nice having you here all this time. It's just like old times." And it was, because it was just me and her. Just like old times. Thanks for sticking with me and listening to my memories of my mom with me. It means a lot, and it helps me to talk about her. I did have another story. That's why it kind of stopped abruptly, because my phone stopped recording in the middle of a story. So I have more stories to tell. But thanks for sticking with me. Have a great day.